Welcome to Leaving a Legacy, Navigating Estate Planning with Rose Harper Law.
Hello, and welcome back to Leaving a Legacy, Navigating Estate Planning with Rose Harper Law. Rose is the founding attorney of Rose Harper Law, where she helps families protect what matters most through estate planning. I'm Chelsea Reynolds, and today we're talking about planning for real estate and vacation homes in your estate and how to make sure those properties are passed down smoothly. Welcome back, Rose.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm definitely passionate about real estate. I own a short-term rental myself, so it's definitely something I am passionate about. So let's get into it.
Let's dive right in. Why can real estate create more challenges in estate planning compared to other assets?
Real estate is really unique because it's non-liquid. It's a physical asset tied to a specific location, and has a series of complex legal rules that govern it. And unlike cash or stocks, you can't simply divide a house into equal parts and hand them out. So the transfer process is governed by the state and local laws, requires deeds and titles, and can be subject to property taxes, upkeep costs, potential family disagreements over what to do with the asset, sell it, continue to use it, rent it out, things like that. So, in that sense, it provides a unique challenge. And then also, sometimes people, like their parents, help them purchase the home. So, how is the home owned? Is it joint tenants? Is it tenants in common? So you have to really look at like what specifically is listed on the deed, who's on the mortgage. There's a lot that goes into assessing, real estate ownership and how that should be passed on through your estate plan.
And how would transferring a family home be different than leaving cash or investments?
So the biggest difference is probably the probate process. So when you leave cash or investments in a will, they're usually handled by the executor and can be distributed to the heirs relatively quickly once the will is validated and debts are paid off. But a house, has to go through the entire probate court process to transfer legal ownership. And that process can be lengthy, costly, and it's public, creating some delays and adding, stress to your heirs. And additionally, the home carries, emotional weight if everyone grew up there. Sometimes it's the emotional aspect of selling the family home. So it's not just a financial asset, but it's also filled with memories, and that can lead to conflicts with your heirs.
What challenges can arise when you've got multiple heirs inheriting a singular property?
So sometimes co-owning property, with family can be, a recipe for disaster. But that's why you need to plan properly. So common challenges with co-owning property can include, the financial burdens. Maybe not every single heir, is in the same financial situation to pay for the ongoing costs like property taxes, insurance, and maintenance. And that can really lead to a strain amongst those relationships. And you don't want that for your kids. And then also, there could just be different priorities. Like one sibling might want to sell the house and get the cash, the other one might want to keep it as a vacation home. So, disagreements can easily arise when there is no plan in place and they don't know what you wanted to happen with the house. And then there's also logistical issues, depending on what people want. Maybe someone's being uncooperative. So that can lead to legal and financial headaches for everyone involved.
We've talked about the emotional attachments a few times that can also factor in. How does owning a property in more than one state affect the estate planning process?
So, when you own property in multiple states, that can definitely complicate things. So, you want to ensure that you have a comprehensive plan in place and that you're consulting estate planning attorneys in each state where you own property, because your home in another state could be subject to a separate probate process. So, if you have no plan in place or you only have a will based plan, that means any homes that you have to go through that probate process that we talked about. And if you own homes in multiple states with no plan in place and or only a will, meaning you didn't create a trust and move your property into a trust to avoid probate, then you're going to have probate in your home state and you'll have probate in the other states where your homes are located. If you have a vacation home, investment homes, and those are called ancillary probate matters. So each state has its own specific laws, courts, and fees, and that can make the process very expensive, time consuming, and you'll need to hire an attorney in each state to handle those.
What can help make passing down real estate easier so that they can avoid probate complications like trusts or LLCs?
Yes. So, definitely, effective tools to avoiding having your real estate pass through the probate process. The main one is a trust. LLCs also provide liability protection, um, and can help separate out your assets if you have liability concerns. And then what you could do is have a trust be the owner of the LLC to help that avoid probate as well. But if you do not have that trust into place, your LLC ownership could still have to go through the probate process. So, really, that revocable trust mechanism is your biggest key to getting your assets to pass along easily and avoid the surrogate's court or probate process, depending on your state. Everyone calls it something different. But so, yes. So, by transferring your assets into a revocable living trust, for example, during your lifetime, that trust owns the property, not you as the individual. So, the trust agreement then dictates the successor trustees and what happens with the property and who gets what.
Very cool. This is a lot of exciting stuff to learn. So, when it comes to property planning or planning property, like homes, vacation homes, what are some of the common mistakes you're seeing families make?
The first one is, like, having no plan in place at all. So, a lot of 60% of adults don't have an estate plan in place. I mean, that's really shocking. Like, I don't know why people are not getting their plan done because, even if you don't have a lot of assets, like, even if you don't, like, own a home, I still feel like dignity-wise, like, you should get your will done. You should have your powers of attorney. Like, you don't why are you, like, letting the state decide what happens with you and your stuff, you know? But getting back to the real estate topic, having no plan in place, can lead to a lot of chaos for your family. So you wanna make sure that you get a plan into place while you're still alive because that provides instructions, it gives legal authority. You wanna work with an attorney, make sure it's done correctly, that way, you have a comprehensive plan that actually works when your family needs it.
What are some options if heirs can't agree on whether to keep or sell a property?
So there's different avenues that can be taken. Sometimes things can escalate and there could be like a partition lawsuit. It can, basically be where, you know, they're arguing over the property and the courts have to get involved. That's really a last resort. It can be costly, emotionally draining, and it means that everyone pretty much loses control over the fate of the property. But that's like the legal path to kind of resolving that type of issue. But that's really why you want to get your estate plan in place while you're alive because you're going to determine what you want to happen and you can document that and that way your kids know, what you wanted to occur with the property.
When you're planning your estate here, do expenses like taxes and upkeep often affect decisions about passing down real estate?
Yes, definitely, because whoever inherits the home has that responsibility. They have the responsibility of the property taxes, insurance, and maintenance. So it's a discussion that you have to have. Like if you're saying, well, I want my adult child who's currently living with me to be able to remain living in the home for another 2 years or 5 years or whatever the case may be after I pass. Okay, well, are they working? Are they receiving state benefits? Are they going to be able to pay the taxes, insurance, and maintenance, during that time frame? Or is that an additional benefit that they're going to be getting from your trust? Or, so these are conversations that definitely have to be had. It depends on the family dynamics, who's inheriting. Are there other siblings involved that now they're going to have to wait on their inheritance? Particularly, I see this issue come up. When you have, maybe one parent has already passed and you have one parent still alive, and maybe they have a boyfriend or girlfriend, who's living with them in the family home.
Mm.
And maybe they've been together a decade, you know? So they want that person who's been their companion to be able to stay in the home for a period of time after they pass. But really, is that I understand it, but, maybe you wanna limit the amount of time, so maybe give them a year. Give them a year to mourn, find a new place, but, putting a longer time frame on that puts a real burden on your adult children because now they don't have closure. They're mourning you now for 2 years, 5 years, because they still have this issue of they have to wrap up your house, and they end up having to check on things. Is the person really able to maintain the property? So it can get really tricky, but that's life and that's family, and you have to navigate those questions and topics, and but I think at least getting a plan into place, documenting what you want to happen, but then also kind of confronting the reality. So
Mm.
if you give someone, the ability to remain living in the home after you pass, do they have the ability to maintain the property in a way that's fair to the rest of your heirs? Because
Mm.
if you give them time to live there, um, and they run it into the ground, or it ends up going into foreclosure because things weren't getting paid that were supposed to get paid, I'm sure, you wouldn't want that either. So definitely having that full conversation, understanding what the impacts are is really important.
How can families who are hoping to pass down property through generations plan effectively to make that happen?
Proactive planning. Get an estate plan in place, consult with an estate planning attorney, start the conversation early. What do you own? Where is it located? How is it titled? What are your goals with those assets? Use a trust. You can get a living trust put into place, transfer assets into that trust. It makes it so much easier to pass down. You can create protections within that trust that protect your inheritance going to the next generation so that when they inherit, they're not getting it outright. They're inheriting through a trust, and that separates that asset from their marriages, divorces, bankruptcies, medical liens. Like you can add protections in there that keep it as a separate asset. So, kind of talking all of that through, like, is there something that needs to be considered with, how you want your heirs to receive their inheritance? Um, and then creating your comprehensive plan and talking about the future and what does that look like, and making sure that you're having those financial discussions like, well, if you were to receive, the person who you want to be your successor trustee, especially like if you have minor kids and
Mm.
you're going to pick someone who's going to be the successor trustee, that means the person who's going to be in charge of the assets that you have preserved for your kids. And if you pass away and you have $1 million life insurance policy and you had $1 million house that went in there, well, that's a big chunk of money. So you want someone who, even if they don't have that much money, they're gonna know, "Hey, I need to go talk to a financial advisor or a few. Let me interview a couple financial advisors and see who, can help me make sure that I secure this money for them and help it grow, hopefully, over time." So that's really important as well.
That's so much to consider. Thank you for listening to today's episode of Leaving a Legacy with Rose Harper. If you'd like help planning for your home, vacation property, or other assets, visit roseharperlaw.com. And don't forget to like, review, and subscribe to the show so you don't miss the next episode. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.